Hey everybody, Alex Terrace here, healthhacksreview.com. So I was going to do this quick video because I get this question a lot about whole body vibration machines. So if these particular health goals fall into your scope of what you're looking for, then look for these kinds of machines. It would be weight loss, if that's your goal, strength training, endurance, and that's basically it. So what machines would actually help you more for those types of conditions in terms of the whole body vibration machine market? By the way, if you don't know what whole body vibration machines are, then definitely just get on Google really quick. You'll find plenty of info out there. But essentially, as you're standing on this platform, you have two types of plate motions, right? You have lineal, also known as vertical, usually called lineal. And that means the whole plate is moving up and down like an elevator. The whole thing at the same time is moving up and down, okay? And then you have oscillatory or pivotal machines. Oscillatory and pivotal, again, same motion, just goes by, or at least is the same word, describing the motion of a seesaw. So as one foot goes up, the other goes down, and vice versa. It's moving like that, like a seesaw. And that actually moves your hips. One side goes up, one side goes down, which is naturally how your body already moves if you're climbing stairs, hiking, walking, running. So for that reason, most people, when they try both machines, they usually feel more comfortable on an oscillatory or pivotal machine, just because, again, it's more naturally to how the body actually moves. When you stand on a plate that's moving up and down, it's just like, you know, when do you ever get to experience that? So you'll feel the vibration of a lineal platform much more travel up your body and your spine, and some people don't like that effect. It also feels a little bit different because lineal machines only go up a millimeter or 2 or 3. They're really ones that are like 3 to 4 millimeters to actually pull off that kind of movement with a lineal. Those plates are $12,000+, just FYI. So if a company is claiming to get that sort of amplitude and it's much lower in price, it's bullshit, basically. So it costs a lot to actually get that up. What's cheap is just making frequency. So, you know, anybody can make 30 hertz, 50 hertz, 20 hertz, whatever, you know, really cheaply. But to actually have some amplitude behind it with a lineal, it's expensive. And also to have a lot of G-force behind an oscillatory or pivotal, that's also expensive. So the whole frequency thing holds true for oscillatories and pivotals on both sides. It's expensive on an engineering level. Let's get back to the topic at hand. So how come an oscillatory or pivotal machine is going to be better for strength training and weight loss? So the reason is, and I use analogies as well, and that'll really help to illustrate the point here, is that if that plate is let's just go with pivotal. I'm going to use pivotal from now on. The pivotal plate actually moves up and down. The displacement or amplitude is usually around 7 millimeters to like 13. Okay, a lineal or vertical is usually around 1 to 2 on average. It's a great deal less. So the point of the plate is to actually accelerate force underneath your legs, which your body and muscles and tendons and everything have to respond to. And what that is actually doing as that force moves up through the body, that's creating almost like an artificial gravity that's higher than Earth's gravity. So your body will be responding to this force and will increase the mass of your own body. So for example, do some easy math here. If you weigh 150 pounds on Earth, which is 1 gravity, that's how we would measure it. If you got on a plate that was 2 gravity, 2G, and you were using it at whatever frequency would provide you the 2G, then what's double your 150 pounds? That would be 300. So your body has to respond for a brief millisecond repeatedly every time the plate moves to as if it was taking the load of 300 pounds repeatedly. And that's where all the magic kind of happens. So even in the explanation of that, it kind of becomes obvious. When we want a machine that has at least a higher range of G-force, because now this gets into the analogy, if you had a 50-pound backpack and you were hiking with it, or you were doing some squats, or any kind of exercise, right, with 50 pounds on you, what do you think would train your body and it would be more challenging, 50-pound backpack or a 250-pound backpack? Pretty obvious, right? So in this example, what's the 250-pound backpack? That is a vibration machine that has a higher G-force than another one that would have less, and that would be the 50-pound backpack. So the other aspect to this is if you're going to have a vibration machine and you plan on using it for years to come, right? You want to keep on challenging the body to continue to adapt in your conditioning and your training, right? So wouldn't it be better to have a wider range of weights that you can train with, or a larger range that you can increase your mass with? So would you want to just train for the next 15 years or 10 years with a 50-pound backpack? Or would you rather have at your disposal weights going from 50 to 500? You know, a big wide range, correct? Kind of obvious when you look at that analogy again. So would you rather spend $2,000 on a 50-pound backpack or $2,000 on a machine, or backpacks, my analogy here, that goes up to 500 pounds? So when you look at the analogy of that one, it's like, well, duh, this is really actually an easy decision. I can figure this out. Well, it's not quite that easy if you've been looking at vibration machines for a while. And the reason is because, yes, it's true that most companies actually lie about their specifications. So you might go out there and say, oh, okay, well, look at this machine over here. You know, it's on sale, $1,000 off, and it goes to 15 Gs, you know. And this one was 5 Gs, and it was $2,000. This is a no-brainer. Okay, well, that is true for a couple brands, but for a lot of them out there, generally when they're lying about their specifications with G-force and sometimes frequency as well. So those are the two things you'll see. Usually I see deceptive frequency stats. Amplitude is usually correct most of the time. But here's the thing, is if they are deceptive about frequency and the amplitude is correct, if you run a calculation, if you actually try to do your homework on this, you would come up with basically a G-force that wasn't accurate. So they are false about their frequency, so that way you can't actually figure out what the G-force is. So in my third-party engineering firm reports that I look at, in my own tests that I've run, what we commonly see for 90% of machines is that they only go to 15 Gs, or 15 Hertz, I'm sorry, which is the frequency. And then what you really want to aim for, and then their G-force, by the way, is on average 0.5 Gs to 5 Gs for 90% of machines. And then these few other machines will basically go up to like 17 to 22 Gs, okay, somewhere within that range. And so then the key is, of course, figuring out what companies actually have genuine specifications, have backed it up with third-party engineering reports. A lot of times if you just ask companies and you say, hey, that's great specifications, you know, can you prove this? They actually cannot. And or they'll send you their factory report and then you look on there and you see, okay, well, it's not what they're claiming. Also, a lot of times when you look at those tests from those factories, you'll notice another thing, which is funny, which is those results that they give you many times are with unloaded tests. So the machines sometimes perform differently when they have no weight on them, like nobody standing on them or no weights put on them as a test, versus, so it's an unloaded versus loaded test. What you want to find is a third-party test that shows loaded. So let's get back to the analogy again because I'm getting tied up in talking about specs. So obviously, you know, more weight or more mass that your body has to deal with trains your muscles better, right? And this can also lead to even more caloric burn, things like that if you're trying to lose weight. Also when it comes to frequency, by the way, this is interesting, but in some research what they found is that you have to hit 25 Hertz in order to trigger what's called the stretch reflex response. And you can Google that one. And what that means is that when you overload the muscle because of the amount of force behind it, the amount of mass it has to deal with, and you're triggering the muscle to contract at a certain speed or rate, once you hit 25 Hertz or 25 contractions a second, then the muscle will actually reach a point where it goes into overactivation mode. So your muscle spindle cells can actually activate up to 90% of them when it goes into a stretch reflex response. And They call it reflex, by the way, and I'll just elaborate on this. Because if somebody pushes you off balance, for example, or you react to something hot that you touched on the stove, your body triggers a greater amount of nerve conduction and a greater amount of your muscle spindle cells in order to move the body with a greater amount of force and quickly. So your body actually triggers a much larger amount of nerve to muscle versus like lifting up a pen or just doing any kind of normal movement, getting out of a chair, versus like, oh my God, my chair is on fire or something, you know, and then you get up. Your body will actually recruit a lot more energy in order to move your body like that. So what's fascinating is that vibration machines can actually produce the same effect in the body, which is what we want. We want to be able to train ourselves to, oh my gosh, activate 90% of muscle spindle cells instead of me doing regular exercise and activating like 8 to 12%, which is a massive difference. You know, wouldn't it be great? However, the thing is when you look at the research, you have to hit 25 hertz in order to have that effect. So then it's like, whoa, okay, so that means 90% or whatever percent, it's a large amount of the vibration machine options out there do not meet the minimum, you know, specs of that. And I would also add that, because now it's going to confuse people, remember, it's not just 25 hertz. It's not just, oh, I found this machine and it was, you know, whatever, and it hit 25, 30 hertz. In the studies, the machines that were used to trigger that response when they found it actually kicked the stretch reflex response at 25 hertz or higher, also had at least 15 Gs of force behind it. So that also, you'd have to disregard, again, most machines that don't even come close to that G-force setting. So basically, it appears that, according to the research, it's both that high frequency range and the G-force, the high G-force, that is able to elicit that response. Can you get other health benefits from machines that are not meeting those specs? Absolutely. You can get a lot of health results, a lot of good effects. I'm just talking about, in addition, if you're really gung-ho about muscle training and the maximum amount of weight loss, and actually bone strength as well would fit into this category, then I think that going for a machine that can trigger their stretch reflex response as well is something that you should try to do if it's within your budget. There is a machine that can do that right now for $2,000, and also a couple that can do it for $3,000. So if that's within your price range, you can reach out to me. And there is at least a couple viable options for you in order to elicit that response in the body. But so yeah, and I hope that explains things a little more. One last point that I didn't really touch on now that I'm remembering on why Pivotal is superior to Lineal when it comes to muscle training and greater metabolic burn and even potentially bone density as well, is that when you're seesawing the platform like that, this actually challenges your core stabilization system. So again, Google that one, core stabilization muscles. So if you try these machines, it would be quite obvious to you as well. What's harder, to stand on a seesawing pivotal machine or oscillatory machine versus a lineal machine? What's easier? You could stand on a lineal machine with 1 foot, it's that easy. It's like standing on the ground, but you're getting vibration. It's that easy. When you're standing on a platform that's going like that, the first time you do it, you hold onto the handlebars because it's challenging your stability much more so. So anybody that knows anything about functional training and decades of exercise science knows that it's crucially important to do more exercise that challenges your core stabilization system, because your brain, your nervous system has to recruit so many more resources. You get a much greater activation of all kinds of different aspects of your body, your musculoskeletal system, when the stabilization is being challenged, especially under high G-force, when it's having to deal with a lot of mass. So like, what's harder, to stand on 1 foot while you're holding 20 pounds or stand on 1 foot when you're holding 150 pounds, right? What do you think is more challenging? So same thing. So you want to, again, look for systems that are seesawing because it's going to activate more of the body, which is going to give you more of the results that you're seeking, essentially. This is especially good if you have bone loss, which generally happens systemically throughout the whole body. That's going to basically put more pressure and tension and pull on the bones when all those little muscles that are parts of the core stabilization system that's all over the place are being recruited. So if you have any questions about this, you need recommendations on machines, you can find me on healthhacksreview.com, which is in the description box below. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you also have questions, you can leave them below in the YouTube video comments. Thanks for watching.